I had been in a mutually torturous marriage with Blake Johnson for 3 years when I developed a mild illness. It wouldn't kill me, but my memories would slowly fade away. Then one day, after Blake had broken my heart once again, I looked up at him in confusion and asked, "I'm sorry, who are you again?" Blake's towering posture didn't change, but his gaze carried a hint of contempt and impatience. "Zoe Lynn, how many times are you going to play this game?" I stared at him with bewildered eyes. "You know my name?" Blake's patience was exhausted. He coldly picked up his coat and headed for the door. "If your brain's not working right, go to the hospital. How many times are you going to pretend to have amnesia? I have work at the company. You can eat dinner by yourself." I watched in confusion as the man stormed out, seemingly furious with me. Unfortunately, I really had no memory of him. I only remembered that yesterday I should have been working part-time at a bubble tea shop outside the university. How did I end up in this strange place today with a strange man? Thinking about it wouldn't solve anything, so I found my phone and called my best friend. The call was rejected twice before finally connecting on the third try. I quickly spoke up. "Hello, Mia? Where are you? I think I'm lost. I'm in a completely unfamiliar place, and there's a strange man saying all sorts of nonsense. Most importantly, I think I might have been kidnapped." Instead of the anxious voice I had hoped for, the other end was filled with cold mockery. Well, our Mrs. Johnson, who married into a wealthy family, still has time to call me? What a surprise. I was baffled. "Mia, what are you talking about? What Mrs. Johnson? What marrying into wealth? I don't understand what you're saying at all." Mia's voice lost some of its earlier coldness, becoming hesitant. "Zoe Lynn, I'm not that idiot husband of yours. Do you really need to act this convincingly with me?" "Mia, what act? I really don't know what's going on." There was a long silence before Mia's voice sounded again. "Don't move. Just wait for me in that room." "Okay." After hanging up, I felt like I had found an anchor and calmed down enough to survey my surroundings. The luxurious decor and furniture suggested the owner of this house was quite wealthy. Thinking back to the man from earlier and what Mia had said on the phone, I covered my mouth in surprise, flashes of countless novel scenes running through my mind. But I shook my head to dispel them. The house was decorated simply, though not to my taste. It must be someone else's home. This was too absurd. Mia arrived quickly. When she knocked on the door, I was observing the fish tank in the living room. As soon as I opened the door, I saw a more mature and bolder version of Mia. Her familiar long hair had become a sleek bob, and her lips were painted a fiery red. I exclaimed in surprise, "Mia, you." Mia's face was icy cold. She didn't wait for me to finish before pulling me away. "At the hospital." Mia frowned deeply, her expression displeased as she looked at the report in her hand. "So, you're saying she's sick and has amnesia?" The doctor explained using a bunch of terms I didn't understand, then pointed at my brain CT scan and said with certainty, "That's right. Her condition has likely been ongoing for some time, and the symptoms of memory loss have probably been present for a while too. If not treated promptly, she may continue to forget more." I sat to the side, listening to their conversation with a bewildered expression. Amnesia? Illness? I just want to sleep. How did the world change so much? After learning about my amnesia, Mia's expression softened somewhat, though her brow remained tightly furrowed. At least she no longer looked as cold as ice like when we first met. Leaving the hospital, I tentatively grabbed Mia's hand. Seeing that she didn't pull away, I carefully opened my mouth. "Mia, I just found out I'm sick too. I have no memory of losing my memories. If I upset you before, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." As I said this, for some reason, I felt a sudden lightness in my heart. Mia looked at me for a long time without speaking, but she also didn't give me the cold shoulder anymore. "So, what are you planning to do next?" Mia suddenly asked. I was caught off guard by her question. Then I thought of the man who had spoken to me so strangely this morning. Just thinking that man might be my husband gave me goosebumps all over. "First, let's deal with that man." Mia stared at me intently. "How do you plan to deal with him?" Looking at Mia's strangely determined face, I hesitantly spoke up. "Divorce? Let's go. We'll do it right now." Before I could react, Mia was already pulling me along. Again with this. Mia seemed to have become quite decisive and efficient. When we arrived at the company, Mia and I had just reached the entrance when we were stopped by the security guards. "Mrs. Johnson, the CEO isn't in the office right now. Please make an appointment and come back another time." Judging by how practiced this seemed, it probably wasn't the first time they had stopped me. A wife needing an appointment to see her husband. How interesting. I turned to Mia awkwardly. Looks like we won't be able to see him today. It was my fault for making Mia come all this way for nothing. Mia stood with her arms crossed, her expression blank as she looked at me. You're quite the pathetic rich man's wife, aren't you? I laughed sheepishly, using my amnesia as an excuse. I forgot, okay? Mia let out a cold laugh. All right, let's go. Just as she finished speaking and we were about to leave, a girl in a white dress with an extraordinary aura walked toward us. Mia's expression changed, her already expressionless face growing even colder. I looked up in confusion as the girl slowly approached me. Zoe, what a coincidence to run into you here. Are you here to see Blake too? Why don't we go in together? Although I didn't know who this girl was, based on the situation and what Mia had told me earlier in the car, I guessed she must be my husband's beloved mistress. Needing to go through the mistress just to see my husband, that did feel pathetic. Fake sincerity, Mia muttered, and directly blocked my way. The girl seemed startled, tears quickly filling her eyes. I'm sorry. I just wanted to help Zoe. I was shocked by how quickly the girl's expression changed. Please don't cry. Zoe Lynn. Hearing my name, I instinctively turned my head. I saw the man I'd met that afternoon, striding angrily toward me. Why are you bullying Lily again? He shielded the girl behind him and started berating me. This was my husband in name only. I instinctively said quietly, I didn't. You didn't? Then why is Lily crying? I was stunned for a moment, then seemed to come to my senses. Why don't you ask her? How would I know why she's crying? I'm not a mind reader. You. Twisting words. Blake patiently comforted the girl, his face gentle and completely different from how he had faced me earlier. I didn't understand why he harbored such hostility toward me. Moreover, we were still married. Didn't I tell you not to come to the company unless it's important? What are you doing here? Blake resumed his cold and disdainful demeanor toward me. Mia couldn't stand it anymore. Blake Johnson, what do you mean by this? Blake's face turned icy. Don't you know what I mean? No matter why you came here, making Lily cry is your fault. Apologize to her right now. Mia was about to step forward, but I stopped her. I walked in front of her, looked at the tearful girl, and spoke softly. I'm sorry. Whatever the reason, it's my fault for making you cry. The girl was stunned, surprise evident on her face. You? Blake also seemed surprised by how quickly I apologized, but he only frowned slightly. What trick are you trying to pull now? I looked at him. No tricks. I just want to talk to you about getting a divorce. As soon as the word divorce came out, Blake sneered, looking at me with contempt. Zoe Lynn, how long are you going to play this divorce game? It's for real. Mia suddenly spoke up from behind me. Blake turned to look at her and laughed. And who are you to say anything? I suddenly bristled. Excuse me, who do you think you are, yelling like this? I'm sorry to say this, but you've got some nerve. You keep a mistress and get a superiority complex? I said divorce and you don't understand? Why do you sneak around with a mistress so much? You just like the thrill. Blake and Lily were stunned by my outburst. People were coming and going at the company entrance. Lily's face turned bright red, and she shook off Blake's hand and ran away. Blake's expression wasn't much better, but all he could do was rage impotently. Zoe Lynn. I smiled sweetly. I'm right here. Tomorrow morning at 9 at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Don't stand me up. With that, I pulled Mia away and left. After walking quite far, Mia calmly gave me a thumbs up. I didn't know you had it in you to tell someone off like that. I scratched my head and smiled. Well, he was insulting you. Mia looked at me for a long time without speaking. I fidgeted nervously with my fingers. What's wrong? Did I used to yell at you too? Mia said flatly. No. Let's go. We'll head to my place first. After talking with Mia all night, I still found this marriage baffling. Mia's knowledge was limited too. She didn't know much about how I ended up marrying Blake, or why I hadn't divorced him even after he openly took a mistress. She only knew that I had inexplicably married into a wealthy family, and then gradually distanced myself from her at the family's urging, until I was curious, but we both agreed that divorcing Blake was the most sensible option right now. After a very comfortable night's sleep at Mia's place, she drove me back to the Johnson house the next day. There was no other choice, as all my documents were still there. Mia waited downstairs while I ransacked the Johnson house. Luckily, I managed to find what I needed. Just as I was getting up from the mess, I ran right into Blake's eyes. Blake's face was mocking. Stealing from your own home? Having lost my memories, I had no recollection or attachment to this house. So I instinctively felt awkward and out of place. And I had the misfortune of running into the man of the house. I smiled nervously, waving the documents in my hand. Civil Affairs Bureau. Don't stand me up. Blake laughed a couple of times, no longer paying me much attention. But just as I was about to leave, he suddenly turned back to look at me. There's a family gathering this weekend. My mom wants me to bring you along. I turned around, confused. What about the divorce? Blake didn't look at me as he walked inside. We'll talk about it when there's time. A few more days won't kill you, right? No. I called after him to stop him. His footsteps paused. Give me a specific date for the divorce. He stood silent for a long moment.
Fine.
Next Monday, right after the family gathering. His voice was cold, completely emotionless. Okay, I said, hearing myself say it. I recorded that. Don't go back on your word. With that, I strode out confidently. I didn't notice Blake turning to watch me leave for a long time. Mia was still waiting downstairs. When she saw me, she hurried over. What took you so long? I pointed upstairs. Ran into that jerk. Got held up a bit. He insists I go to some family gathering with him, but I didn't lose out. I got a specific date for the divorce, so he can't back out now. We agreed as soon as the family gathering is over, we get divorced. I was excited, not noticing Mia's increasingly furrowed brow. You can't go. Why not? I'm worried his family will treat you badly. I'm afraid you'll get bullied. I squeezed Mia's hand. It's fine. It's just for a little while. I won't lose anything. Don't worry, I won't let anyone bully me. I'm afraid. It's okay, I said firmly. I have to face these things myself eventually. Mia nodded reluctantly. All right then. The weekend arrived quickly. Mia dropped me off at the Johnson house. Blake's car was already waiting at the front gate. I waved goodbye to Mia before getting into Blake's car. Inside, we sat in awkward silence. After a long while, Blake finally broke it. When did you two make up? Though I didn't want to talk to him, I answered out of politeness. None of your business. Blake fell silent. The car was quiet again. After a bit, Blake stretched, bored, and glanced at me. Wonder what food they'll have at home. I closed my eyes, ignoring him completely, pretending not to hear, until Blake accidentally bumped into me. I opened my eyes impatiently. How would I know? I'm not the family chef. Besides, what do you care what food there is? All you do is eat anyway. Blake got what he wanted and shut up. The driver in front chuckled at our interaction. Cut-off point, he remarked quietly. It's been a long time since I've seen the young master so flustered. Speechless. The car fell blissfully silent after that. Blake didn't say another word until we got out. I was happy for the peace and quiet. The Johnson family's main residence was huge. I couldn't help but marvel that I had really married into such wealth. As soon as we entered, before I could take a good look around, many people came up to greet us. Using my amnesia as an excuse since I didn't recognize anyone, I just smiled politely. It wasn't until Blake called one woman Mom that I realized who my mother-in-law was supposed to be. But when she turned around and I saw her face clearly, I was shocked. How could it be her? My breathing quickened. Blake's mother, my current mother-in-law, was actually the wealthy lady who had quietly supported me all this time. I was even more confused, my head ready to explode. What exactly had happened? Why had I become so entangled with her son? Perhaps I'd been lost in thought for too long, because Blake suddenly pulled me closer. Mom, Zoe and I came back together. The woman immediately took my hand. Zoe's back too. It's been so long since I've seen you. You've gotten thinner. Come here, and let Mom have a good look at you. I froze, barely able to keep the smile on my face. I'm fine. But I didn't have the courage to call her Mom. Before this, during the darkest days of my life, when I was bullied and humiliated by other kids at the orphanage, she had been the only one willing to support me, a ray of light. How I had longed to call her Mom back then. But it shouldn't have been in this role. How could that be? I've been taking such good care of her. She's actually gained weight. If anything, look at your son. I'm the one who's gotten thinner. Blake's attitude towards me shifted completely from his earlier coldness. He walked over familiarly, trying to take my hand. Isn't that right, Zoe? There was something in his eyes I couldn't understand. I didn't know what he meant, and I didn't want to play along with his act. The moment his large hand was about to envelop mine, I instinctively pulled away. Blake's expression froze for an instant. Mrs. Johnson acted as if she hadn't noticed our little interaction, pulling me inside. Never mind him, let's go in. Once inside, we were faced with a large group of family members. Perhaps the shock from Mrs. Johnson had been too great. Looking at so many people, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Before she could lead me to a seat, I frantically ran out. Excuse me for a moment, I need to use the restroom. The Johnson family's courtyard was very large. As I ran toward the front, a bamboo grove came into view, with a small river behind it. I actually had no idea where the restroom was. I just purely wanted some fresh air. The air here was very good. I took deep breaths, trying to ease my earlier discomfort. I desperately wanted to recover my lost memories. No one wanted to know why I had married into the Johnson family more than I did right now. Zoe Lynn. A familiar cold voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned around and sure enough, it was Blake. Before he could speak, I was already impatient. What, you again? You're quite persistent, aren't you? Blake's words got stuck in his throat. I can't even leave for a moment? What? Your family can't function without me around. Besides, we're about to get divorced. Your family will find out sooner or later anyway. Why bother putting on this fake, happy couple act? I hope today's incident won't happen again. I was referring to his attempt to hold my hand earlier. Blake frowned, taking a while to react before laughing instead of getting angry. Zoe Lynn, wasn't all this what you wanted? Now you're acting all high and mighty. His expression was both annoyed and urgent, as if he needed to confirm something. I've told you many times, stop with all these ridiculous games. The person I love isn't you. Why can't you understand that?
I just found it baffling.
Oh, I said expressionlessly. Let me remind you again, we're about to get divorced. You can love whoever you want, I don't care. Blake met my emotionless gaze, froze for a few seconds, then suddenly said viciously, Zoe Lynn, you'd better keep your word. With that, he walked away. I rolled my eyes in exasperation. I shouted at his retreating back. Blake didn't turn around, but his strides became even larger. When I went back inside, I didn't see Mrs. Johnson. A servant led me to the banquet hall. Mrs. Johnson saw me come in and smiled, waving me over. Zoe's here, come sit by Mom. After I sat down next to her, she carefully inquired about my health. It's nothing serious. I nodded slightly at her. I might have just gotten a bit carsick. That's good. Mrs. Johnson gently patted my hand. I sat there uncomfortably until the banquet began. Glancing around briefly, I noticed Blake was nowhere to be seen. Mrs. Johnson had clearly noticed this issue too. Where did Blake go? She asked. The people around all said they hadn't seen him. Mrs. Johnson slowly shifted her gaze to me. I smiled, saying directly, I don't know either. Mrs. Johnson was clearly startled by my frankness, but quickly recovered. He might have gotten tied up with work and couldn't get away. Let's not wait for him then. I nodded. The food the Johnson family had prepared was actually quite good. I was just about to dig in when I noticed Mrs. Johnson's unpleasant expression out of the corner of my eye. I politely inquired, Is something wrong? Mrs. Johnson lowered her voice. What was that about earlier? As Blake's wife, how could you not cover for him any face? I asked sincerely. Then what should I have said? Mrs. Johnson couldn't be bothered with me anymore, saying casually, just eat.
Oh.
After the meal, there was still no sign of Blake. I didn't care. I was planning to go back to my room for a nap. Led by a servant, I found the room the Johnson family had prepared for Blake and me to rest in. Just as I was about to take a nice nap, a servant knocked on the door, saying Mrs. Johnson wanted to see me. When I got to Mrs. Johnson's room, I saw Blake, who had been missing for the entire banquet. Holding back a yawn, I politely asked, Did you need something? Mrs. Johnson's expression was no longer as warm as when we first met, carrying a hint of sternness. Blake tells me you've been acting up again lately. The Mrs. Johnson in front of me was completely different from the Mrs. Johnson I knew. I could only nod and speak frankly. I want to divorce him. Blake turned his head to look at me deeply. Are you going to make a scene in front of my mother too? Don't you feel ashamed, Zoe Lynn? His voice was icy cold and harsh, but it couldn't hurt me at all. Seeing that Mrs. Johnson wasn't going to speak up for me, I had no choice but to face Blake directly. I've had a question since yesterday that I hope you can answer for me. Blake. What? Why exactly are you so confident? So confident that even when I've clearly said I don't like you and want to divorce you, you still think I'm just making a fuss? Ignoring Mrs. Johnson and Blake's unpleasant expressions, I continued. What do I need to do to prove it? What do I need to do for you to take me seriously when I'm trying to discuss this with you? Is this the manners of the Johnson family's eldest son? Not even having the most basic respect for another person. Respect. Blake suddenly sneered. I think you've taken this amnesia act too far. Don't tell me you've forgotten how you used to beg me to love you? Respect? What right does someone as lowly as you have to talk to me about respect? Zoe Lynn, every inch of your body was paid for by our Johnson family. What gives you the right to talk to me about respect? Blake got more and more worked up as he spoke, as if he had regained the upper hand. That's enough, Blake. Zoe is your wife after all. Why say such things? Mrs. Johnson finally spoke up, but her expression was indifferent. She seemed to be scolding Blake, but was actually warning me. This was blatant humiliation. I took a deep breath. How much? Blake frowned. What? How much? How much money have I cost you over the years? Although I didn't believe I would become the kind of person who only cared about money, the fact that I had married Blake was true. If I had accidentally spent his money, it should be understandable. Make an itemized list. I'll pay you back in full after the divorce. This time, Blake was stunned. Fine. You've really outdone yourself, Zoe Lynn. I'll make a detailed list for you. I'll be waiting for you to pay me back. With that, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Mrs. Johnson let out a long sigh. Before she could speak, I said first, you too. Mrs. Johnson blinked. You make an itemized list too. You've been supporting me since I was little. It's time for me to repay you now. Mrs. Johnson was taken aback and unconsciously called out, Zoe, are you trying to cut ties with me too? I lowered my head silently, holding back tears. It's normal for men to make some mistakes outside. Why can't you be more flexible, Zoe? Mrs. Johnson tried to persuade me again. Go back for now. I'll pretend I didn't hear anything about a divorce. No. I barely got a word out when Mrs. Johnson shut me down. Zoe Lynn, how many times are you going to make a fuss about divorce? The Johnson family has treated you so well. What more could you possibly be unsatisfied with? I supported you for so many years, and you think you can just pay me off with money? Let me tell you, what you owe me, you'll never be able to repay in this lifetime. I stood frozen. Those words felt painfully familiar. Looking at Mrs. Johnson's bitter and sarcastic face, the gentle and kind image I once had of her crumbled bit by bit. The woman who had tenderly held my hand was becoming blurry. I don't remember how I left the Johnson house. By the time I came to my senses, I was already in the car with Blake, heading home. Before we left, Mrs. Johnson and Blake whispered to each other outside the car. I didn't care at all. Once inside, Blake's expression wasn't as unpleasant as before. He even took the initiative to speak. You acted pretty convincingly this time. But I still advise you not to waste your efforts. Lily is the only one in my heart. No matter what you do, it won't change anything. Looking at Blake's faintly smug face, I fell into deep thought. Shouldn't a man who's found true love harshly reject a clingy ex who won't let go? But why did he seem to be rejoicing that I was just acting? The more I thought about it, the more my head hurt. I simply closed my eyes to rest.
Yes.
I owed Mrs. Johnson too much. More than I could ever repay. So, she took away my marriage. And I couldn't say anything. Back at Blake's villa, I called Mia first to briefly report the situation. Mia was furious on the other end. No wonder you wouldn't divorce him. So that was the root of it. If you ask me, you shouldn't have such a strong moral compass. She's emotionally blackmailing you. You might as well just be an ungrateful bitch. Now that everything was out in the open, Mia had reverted to her former chatty self. I stayed silent. Mrs. Johnson had always been different for me. It's fine. Looking at it from another perspective, I'm rich and free now, and my husband doesn't even come home. How blissful. Mia was quiet for a moment before asking, how much does he give you each month? I opened my banking app, took a look, and told her a number that nearly made my jaw drop. Mia said, actually, I don't think you absolutely have to get divorced.
She made me laugh.
All right, you get some good rest today. After chatting for a long time, Mia and I reluctantly hung up. Just as I was about to get some proper rest, I realized Blake was standing silently at my bedroom door.
He startled me.
Need something? Blake shook his head but walked straight in. He casually opened the closet and started changing clothes. How shameless. Thinking this was his home, and I didn't really have the right to make him leave, I left first. Blake spoke coldly behind me. Where are you going? I turned back in a daze. Aren't you changing clothes? I'm giving you some space. It's not like you haven't seen it before. But I haven't seen it. Unfortunately, Blake wouldn't believe me even if I said so. After this incident, I decided to choose the guest room with better lighting as my bedroom. When Blake found out, he didn't react much, so I took it as tacit approval. We continued like this peacefully for a week. One evening at dinner time, Blake didn't come home. I didn't wait for him either. He was probably with his true love. I guessed. In the middle of the night, as I was sleeping hazily, I felt someone standing by my bed. I opened my eyes and there really was someone there. I blurted out a curse. Turning on the light, I saw it was Blake. Having been woken up in the middle of the night, I was deeply resentful. Are you sick? Standing by someone's bed in the middle of the night. Blake stared at my face, without speaking. Weirdo. I cursed again before turning over to go back to sleep. Today, you didn't send me a text message. What text message? I was so tired, I didn't want to deal with him at all. If you're sick, go to the hospital. If you're lacking love, go find your mistress. With that, I fell asleep again, not caring if anyone was still there. Hearing my faint snoring, Blake seemed to laugh. Mistress, looks like you still care after all. Early the next morning when I woke up, I wanted to confront Blake, but found he had left very early. He got away quickly. After breakfast, I continued my job search. Ever since Blake had told me to pay him back, I had become wary. But after applying to several companies in my field, they all rejected me as soon as they heard my name. I knew Blake and his mother had probably warned them off. They didn't dare offend the Johnson family, so they wouldn't hire me. Perhaps this was why I hadn't been able to find work all these years. But I couldn't give up. I had to keep trying. Sitting around passively would only make things worse. After searching for a very long time, I finally found a company willing to let me come in for a trial. I was overjoyed and excitedly told me about it. What did you say the company was called?
Starlight.
Why, have you heard of it? Mia. Have I heard of it? Starlight was founded single-handedly by the second young master of the Gu family. You forgot about the Gu family? They're your Johnson family's biggest rivals in Shanghai.
I pondered for a while.
No wonder they dared to hire me. But I think it's more likely they want to see the Johnson family make fools of themselves. You really plan to go? Of course. It's not easy to get an opportunity, I can't miss it. Besides, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The interview was scheduled for an afternoon a few days later. I went over the professional knowledge in my mind again and again, and put on an outfit I thought was appropriate before taking a taxi to the interview location. There were far more people interviewing than I expected. Either bright-eyed college students or experienced professionals in crisp suits. Looking around, I seemed to be the most ordinary one here. I sighed slightly, thinking I might really be wasting my time today. Sitting outside waiting, I was still a bit nervous. But when the impassive interviewer across from me fired question after question, I calmly answered them all. Afterwards, the interviewer nodded and told me to go home and wait for news. I breathed a sigh of relief. At least I had passed this round. When I got home, Blake was sitting on the couch waiting for me. Seeing his expression wasn't great, I didn't want to be bothered and just wanted to quickly get back to my room. But as I passed by him, he called out to me. Did you have this thrown away? Beating sweat, Blake tossed a tattered stuffed animal in front of me. I looked at the stuffed animal, trying to recall. It seemed familiar. I think the cleaning lady had asked me if I still wanted this thing. It looked like junk, but since this wasn't my house, I didn't feel right throwing it away. So I had just put it under the coffee table. No, I put it under the coffee table, I said. Blake let out a cold laugh. Ha, if you didn't want it, you could have just thrown it away. Why hide it? Did you really think I cared about this piece of junk? Here we go again. Oh, I said. I took the stuffed animal and tossed it directly into the trash can in front of him. There, problem solved. I'm going to my room to sleep now. Ignoring Blake's twisted expression, I finally made it back to my room and collapsed on the bed, starting to doze off. As I was falling asleep, I thought I heard Blake yelling, "What the hell are you all doing? Throw all this garbage out." Then the house fell silent. Half asleep, I heard the door open and close. Since you don't care, fine. Then I could only make out bits and pieces, so I didn't bother trying to figure it out. I slept until evening. Getting up hungry, I planned to go to the kitchen to find something to eat. As soon as I opened the door, I saw two people passionately kissing on the couch. Lily, with her clothes in disarray, shot me a challenging look, then kissed Blake even more enthusiastically. Blake heard the noise and let go of her, even greeting me. "You're up. There's food in the pot if you're hungry." I blinked, coming back to my senses. I responded flatly, and really did walk past them to the kitchen. Blake hadn't lied to me, for dishes and a soup were being kept warm on low heat. As I was scooping rice, my hand trembled slightly. How thrilling! Waking up to such a scene. Yet I couldn't help thinking about the past. Is this how they used to treat me too? Sighing, I ate while scrolling through videos on my phone. Suddenly, I received an email. When I opened it, I saw I had passed Starlight's interview. I wanted to scream with joy, but held back because of the couple nearby. I suppressed it. While Blake was away, Lily slowly sat down across from me. She smiled first, then brazenly showed off the marks Blake had left on her. "Little sister Zoe, you're quite the pathetic wife, aren't you?" I smiled too. I didn't realize being a mistress was something to be proud of these days. "You." Lily's perfectly made-up face cracked a bit. "What are you so smug about? If you hadn't thrown tantrums and threatened suicide, Blake would have divorced you long ago." Though I didn't remember what I was like before I lost my memories, the current me had made so many preparations for divorce. It was the Johnson family who didn't want to let go. But there was no point explaining this to the person in front of me, so I just stayed silent. Seeing I had no response, Lily became even more smug. If it were me, if my husband didn't love me, I'd just let him go. I wouldn't cling on like a leech. The one who isn't loved is the real mistress, and you, Zoe Lynn, that's exactly what you are. The one who isn't loved is the real mistress. What nonsense. Just an excuse for the unfaithful. I let out a cold laugh. Since you think you're so right, why don't I share your brilliant insights with your parents? I'd like to see if they also think the one who isn't loved is the real mistress.
You, Zoe Lynn.
You wouldn't dare. What wouldn't I dare? Lily was furious, but suddenly put on a tearful act. "I'm so sorry, little sister Zoe. I just love Blake so much." I spoke without thinking. I knew without turning around that Blake had returned. Sure enough, Blake embraced the small and delicate Lily, then looked at me with a complex expression. "Zoe." I finished the last 2 bites of my food without looking up. "Control your woman." With that, I walked out. My first official day of work was the following Monday. I used the time until then to thoroughly review relevant knowledge, fully preparing myself. During this period, Lily still recklessly tried to provoke me. I expressionlessly handed her a divorce agreement I had signed, but Blake hadn't. "The person you really need to convince isn't me." Page by page, Lily's expression gradually fell apart. Seeing her about to break down, I couldn't help but feel a bit of pity in my gaze. I pitied her, and also pitied my former self trapped in this marriage. When I officially started at Starlight, ready to show my abilities, I found my daily work consisted of nothing but copying documents and formatting PowerPoint presentations. I couldn't get involved with any real work content at all. After a few days, I finally understood. Starlight had hired me not because of my professional skills, but to see exactly what the Johnson family's young madam was up to. Though it was somewhat laughable, I kept at it. For no other reason than I needed money. One day after work, as usual, I returned home. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Mrs. Johnson and Blake sitting in the living room. They seemed to be waiting for me. "You started working at Starlight?" Mrs. Johnson got straight to the point. I nodded. Mrs. Johnson took a deep breath. "Zoe Lynn, I can ignore your little games. But Starlight? That's not a place you can work. I don't care what your reasons are. Resign immediately." "I need money. When has the Johnson family ever deprived you of food or clothing that you'd need to earn money at our mortal enemy's company?" "You haven't deprived me." I looked Mrs. Johnson straight in the eyes. "But I owe you too much, don't I? I owe Blake money, and I owe you for supporting me all these years. I'll never be able to repay it in this lifetime." Mrs. Johnson was taken aback and instinctively glanced at Blake. Why are you suddenly bringing this up?" I closed my eyes for a moment. "Mrs. Johnson, please allow me to call you that. I know the great kindness you've shown me, kindness I can never fully repay no matter what. But that's not a reason to trap me in this failed marriage. I am free. If you need, I can work diligently for your company my whole life, or attend to you personally when you're ill. But you shouldn't selfishly tie me to your son's side. I don't love him, and we won't be happy together. This kind of compromise will only lead to unhappiness for both of us." Mrs. Johnson interrupted loudly. "Shut up. Don't say any more. You don't understand anything. How can I trust those women out there? Only you are someone I know inside and out. If it weren't for Blake's sake, why do you think I supported you in the first place?
Mom.
What are you saying? It wasn't just Blake who was shocked.
So was I.
So what I had thought was my salvation turned out to be so ridiculous. So this is what you've thought all along. I looked at her with disappointment, feeling indescribably let down. So that's how it was. Mrs. Johnson frantically grabbed Blake's hand. Blake, listen to Mom. I couldn't bear to stay a moment longer and turned to leave. Blake shook off his mother's hand and called after me. Since you don't like this marriage either, I agree to the divorce.
What? Blake.
How can you disobey your mother like this? Those women out there are all after your money. The rest of her words were cut off as I left the house. After calming myself down, I took a taxi to Mia's place. We cursed the Johnson family for a long time before Mia gently hugged me. I'm sorry you had to go through so much pain alone. I patted Mia's back. How could that be? I had food and shelter at the Johnson house. How is that suffering? Mia held me quietly. On the day Blake and I divorced, I saw Lily crying and following behind him. Blake, didn't you divorce her for my sake? How can you abandon me now? Blake, I love you. Please don't leave me. Blake coldly had his bodyguards pull her away. But when he saw me, his expression softened unusually. You're here. I nodded without speaking, trying to calmly complete the divorce procedures with him. Outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, the increasingly hysterical Lily saw me and suddenly rushed over, shouting, Zoe Lynn, are you happy now? Blake doesn't want me anymore. Are you satisfied? Blake came up behind her and signaled the bodyguards to drag her away. I calmly waved the divorce certificate in my hand and smiled. Don't be so clingy, okay? With that, I walked away, ignoring the people behind me. My life ahead would be bright. After divorcing from the Johnson family, I stopped going to work at Starlight. I planned to find a new company that could actually use my skills. But unexpectedly, I received a call from Starlight one day. Miss Lynn, our patience is limited. If you continue to be absent like this, we'll have to let you go. I was shocked but quickly packed my things and went back to work. To my surprise, the work Starlight assigned me gradually became more important. Everything seemed to be moving in a positive direction. One afternoon after work, I ran into a drunk Blake at the company entrance. Zoe, you really had amnesia, didn't you? I only just realized it. I can't believe I only just noticed. I'm so sorry, Zoe. I'm truly sorry. So that's why you forgot our promise, forgot about our special stuffed animal. Zoe, I'm so sorry. If I had known you had amnesia, I never would have let you go, no matter what. Blake Johnson, I said calmly. That stuffed animal was the first handmade gift you gave me. Blake's eyes widened in shock. Whether I had amnesia or not, I wouldn't love you. I hope you understand that. With that, I walked away, ignoring Blake's sobbing behind me. The relaxation during this time allowed me to gradually recall some memories. Like how Blake and I were very sweet when we first got married. He even learned to make crafts just to make me a tattered stuffed animal. But as time passed, he gradually lost interest in me and fell for the young and beautiful Lily. I was heartbroken and made a scene without thinking, only to receive Blake's disgust. Slowly, I became more and more disappointed in Blake. But Mrs. Johnson wouldn't allow me to divorce. In the midst of this grief, I gradually forgot those memories that caused me pain. Becoming who I am now, I looked up and saw the setting sun on the horizon. Let it be. Forget the things I don't like. From now on, everything I encounter will be things I choose to like.